All right, we've got interpretation going and live stream going, so I will go ahead and turn off my screen and turn it over to Tishri and to Dr. Novotny and Chair Brown.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm only seeing a few names. Greg, do we have everybody here?
I don't believe so. That looks like Director Powell is here. Director Pyros is here. You are here. So we just have 3 of our board members at this point. We have both of our student reps are here. Welcome, Maddie, and welcome, Rowan.
Greg, you know Director Pinner will not be here tonight, right?
I did not know that, but
yeah, he's traveling. Yeah. He won't be here.
Director Pena has arrived. So it looks like you are missing Director Shannon and Director DeHart at this point.
Thank you.
Chair Brown, I believe the rest of the board members are here and we have a quorum.
We're good to go. So Brian and Trevor made it?
Yes, they're on.
You're on, okay. All right, call the order of the meeting here tonight. We're going to start off with our first thing, and that will be the flag salute. And Director DeHart is going to lead that. So thank you, Director DeHart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Director DeHart, a couple of quick things before we get started. Director Pinner will not be here tonight. She is traveling. And so hopefully she's traveling towards someplace nice and warm. We also have a happy birthday to Director Powell tonight. So we will spare her singing happy birthday because I'm sure we're not the choir. But Director Powell, happy birthday. Is she there? She might not hear that. So again, those 2 things right there for those guys. I'm going to review the agenda very quickly. Tonight we'll have public comment. Then we will have the board, superintendent, and student representative comments. So we're going to go with the student representative comments right after Dr. Dave. Then we will go into reports and presentations. And we'll have a transportation contract update from Nikki Fowler and Shiloh Frick. And then we will have our new business. And we will go into processing public complaints, the executive search proposals, and a construction contract approval that will be brought to us by Larry Hampton tonight. We have an executive session after this, and then we'll return to a regular meeting. So the first thing we're going to do is our public comments, and that will be with Attorney Lisa Freely.
Okay. Again, I will apologize to anyone's name who I get completely and totally wrong. I am definitely not the best person when it comes to getting it right. So not intentional, I promise. These are being read in the order they were received, and they were the ones that came into the Gmail account for public comments. This is from Sally Klein. To Newburgh school board members, it is imperative for you to stop separating groups of people in the classrooms. Hasn't our county suffered enough intentionally manufactured divisiveness? Hasn't Oregon? Hasn't Newburgh? Our state schools ranking in this county and the world should tell you all you need to know to put a stop to this calculated rancor. It isn't helping. We need to concentrate on the basics in education to enable a child to make their own way towards self-sufficiency. Kate Brown's dropping of standards for graduation, along with attempts to permeate curriculums with flag-waving, biased lifestyle choices, will not give our children the tools to succeed in life. Your forced discord is driving people away from public schools. For every parent who has the ability to get their kids out, there are many more wishing or trying to do the same right now. 4 brave members of this board are trying to convey to you the damage being done and the importance of getting our children back on track to achieving a solid education. I thank those 4 members and congratulate Dave Brown and Brian Shannon, especially for standing up to the current attacks. I'm praying that their wisdom has not been for naught. Stop the detrimental inflicting of personal political ideologies and flag-waving preferences to the usurpation of parental rights and our children's future. Give us critical thinkers. Stop suffocating our children literally and figuratively. John and Joyce Bonham. I would like this read at the board meeting. I have just heard about a survey that has been circulated at a middle school that appears to have been initiated by a principal. It requires the child to claim adherence to certain sexual identities and beliefs. Is this a role the school should be playing? Isn't this the role of the parents? When you think about the influence that schools and teachers and the principal have on children, this seems to me to be an abuse and overstepping of their role. I ask that the school board and interim superintendent look into this and put a stop to these activities that have no place in our schools. What is the reason for the school to do this? What do they intend to do with the material? Who is going to see the results of this survey, and who are they and why do they need it? Will the materials become a part of the student's record, and to what end? Who besides the principal was involved, and what is their intent? When we consider how our students are doing academically, I think the schools have plenty to do to improve the quality of education in reading, writing, math, and science without bringing in these political and sexual issues, which are not the proper role of schools. Those who wish to engage in this political and sexual indoctrination should leave the schools and find a suitable forum for their agenda. Sarah Johnson. Hello, as a member of Newburgh community, I'm appalled to see what our young children are consistently being bombarded with. I keep hearing from board members that BLM and pride flags are not political. Well, here is a direct quote from the BLM website. Our evolution of, and this is the quote, our evolution of political courage becomes BLM PAC, a political power we now have in our toolbox to elect officials who create Black affirming policies. Through Black Lives Matter, we have this opportunity and blessing to do the work that leads to policy change and encourage us to reimagine and build towards a future that prioritizes the safety of Black people. End quote. Please get rid of all BLM propaganda. Please get rid of all pride propaganda. Our children do not need to be bombarded with propaganda. They need to achieve high standards in academia. The Newburgh School District is not setting up children for success in the real world. It's embarrassing. They're pushing their political agenda on innocent children who just need to learn the basics of education. Newburgh has spoken. Brian and Dave are staying. Now come together, look at the academics, create a plan to help the children succeed. Get out all the political signs and work together. Brandy Penner, you have been quoted stating the board will never work together again. Be an example of what it means to do teamwork for the sake of our children, please. Show Newburgh you can all work together and get the signs out of our schools and raise the bar for grades and test scores. I look forward to seeing mature attitudes and behaviors at the next school board meeting. I look forward to hearing how the follow-up of banning political signs is being conducted. I look forward to hearing the plan of how we're going to put our children and their academic success first. Praying for you all. Patrice Jordan. It has come to my attention that there is a strong and ongoing culture of bullying in the schools, particularly at Chehalem Valley Middle School. There apparently exists not only among the students, but also among teachers. I'm appalled to learn that this bullying has been ongoing repeatedly reported and yet goes unaddressed. This failure to stop this abuse has resulted in the loss of many students and staff, and we need to retain as many students and qualified teachers as we can. I strongly urge you to investigate this issue and to make changes as quickly as possible. I believe there is a detailed policy for addressing this bullying, but apparently enforcement has not been done, and attention to this is necessary as soon as possible. I'm providing this email to be read as public comment on Tuesday evening, January 25th at the school board meeting. I would also like it to be considered part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. Patrice Jordan. Congratulations on retaining Dave Brown and Brian Shannon to the board. They are such a valuable asset with their clear-eyed, practical approach to setting policy for the district. I got to know them better through the recall because of their interviews and question answering sessions online. I think it is a great way for us to connect with board members and learn how you think on some issues. Maybe there will be more opportunities for that in the future now that the recall is over. I'm looking forward to our district making great strides for our children's education. There is still a large chunk of time between now and summer for them to catch up on their education in a more peaceful and focused classroom environment, minus the BLM and Pride paraphernalia. I am so grateful that we have Dave Novotny for our interim superintendent so these measures can be implemented. I'm providing this email to be read as public comment on Tuesday, January 25th, school board meeting. I would also like it to be considered part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. Janet and Sam Steele. I'm writing this email to be read during opening comments at the Newburgh school board meeting on Tuesday evening, January 25th, and to be entered into the written record. I'm a concerned Newburgh citizen and taxpayer with friends and family members who are students in the district. I would like to express my support for Newburgh school board members, Dave Brown and Brian Shannon, Trevor DeHart, and Renee Powell for their work at removing politics from our schools. The teachers need to put their efforts into teaching academics and leave their personal politics and agendas at home. Crystal Hughes, I believe. My name is Crystal Hughes and I'm a mom of 4. 3 of my children were part of the Newburgh school district until just this year when I pulled them out to homeschooling. It wasn't my first choice, but there was too much happening to ignore. I'm providing this email to be read as public comment at the Tuesday evening, January 25th school board meeting. I would also like it to be considered part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. I would like my voice to be heard and considered in these matters. First, I want to congratulate Brian and Dave on beating the recall efforts. You've had my support and will continue to because I fully believe in the things you are standing for. You continue to show that you have our kids' best interests at heart and that you are willing to fight for it. My children are not currently attending the Newburgh schools due to my disappointment in their focus, but I have renewed hope that things may turn around and they may be able to return in the future. I pulled my children this year because I had noticed a drastic decline in educational focus and an increase in the political. I did not send my children to school to have their ideologies molded, but to have the general subjects taught. I do not like having my parental role encroached upon. I also feel as though children are being groomed and led into more confusion, as well as being exposed to things that are not even nor should be on their radar. Children are so much more than their gender, sexual orientation, or race. But I feel this is the only thing that can be seen as anymore. It isn't healthy. Should students be discriminated against due to any of these things? No, of course not. Everyone should be included. But there is a way to be inclusive without shining a light on these topics in such a polarizing way. My children got to the point where they felt like outliers, where they were being who were being discriminated against. The flags and the political symbols just will not unite, but only divide. We need to remove them from our schools and return to what school is intended to be, an institution where skills, academics are taught, and children are allowed to critically think and grow without the influence of teacher and staff ideals. And that was the end of our 2 minutes on that one. Brandon Casey, I'm providing this email as public comment on Tuesday evening, January 25th. I would also like it to be considered part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. First, I would like to congratulate Dave and Brian. It is without question that this community supports them as well as Renee and Trevor. I would also like to address the fact that teachers are continuing to display BLM and Pride propaganda in defiance of the board. that these teachers are not to be allowed to indoctrinate our children with left-wing ideology. I would ask that the board, along with the interim superintendent, immediately take action and stop these violations. Last week, the Newburgh community made a clear statement. We support Dave and Brian, and we do not want our children indoctrinated with ideology. We simply want our children and all children to go to school, learn academics, go home, and leave adult social issues to the parents. We have recently seen a rise in left-wing extremists in Newburgh. Some of the ringleaders of this are not even from Newburgh. They are from Portland. And some of them do not even have children in the school district, yet they attempt to sow division and hatred in our community. And I'm glad that our community has stood up to it. I would also ask the board to find a permanent superintendent who shares the values of our community and will uphold the board's decision to make masks optional. These masks are doing unbelievable harm to our children. Kids are developing speech problems and anxiety disorders along with depression. And some kids don't even want to go to school anymore because of these masks. Kids are also having PE inside wearing masks, which can be dangerous. It was proven in a study that when a child puts a mask on, their carbon dioxide levels can be 6 times higher than whatever is safe within 3 minutes of putting on the mask. It has been widely reported that these masks do not stop the transmission of COVID, and that it is also very apparent, seeing as everyone in school has been wearing masks, yet teachers are still out sick. Clearly, they don't work. And there's a little bit left, but I'm at my 2 minutes. Geraldine Lefebvre. I'm writing to you today to express my support for the conservative school board members. I would also like to congratulate Brian and Dave Brown on beating the recall effort. We need to return to the basics of the classroom: reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and true history. The classroom is not a place for politics and for putting across the agenda of teachers and other adults. The classroom should be a neutral place where all students can feel safe and comfortable. I would like all the pride and BLM flags to come down so that the classrooms, hallways, and everywhere else in the school can be non-divisive. I also believe that CRT has no place in the schools. Critical race theory only keeps race at the forefront, that is not helpful to anyone. I appreciate the efforts of Dave Brown, Brian Shannon, Renee Powell, and Trevor DeHart to keep these divisive things out of our school and get our teachers back to teaching basic subjects so that the test scores in Newburgh will go up where they should be. Activism of teachers has no place in the school, and I thank the conservative members of the school board for realizing this and making the good changes that need to be made to get the classrooms back to a learning environment for the students without politics involved. I would like this email to be considered part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. Roger Courier. It was great to see the current board will stay in effect and seated into the future. All of this effort was well worthwhile in bringing the citizens of Newburgh up to speed and involved, as well alert to what has been going on in our schools with our tax dollars. Now that the control of the rules that have been passed are in effect, they need to be implemented. Actually, he used the word implanted, but I think he meant implemented, and have follow through. Clean up the classrooms that are in violation and make it clear to the head of each school, principals, that this is school district policy and will not have any deviation to these rules. Get involved more into what is being taught or shared in the so-called wellness class. What is it really? What is it supposed to do or accomplish? What is it? Is it really a place for students with mental issues, hazing problems, bullying, or just a mind changer, a place for promoting, deciding your sex life? It should be defined somewhere in the original or refined statement of purpose to be sure that they are only doing what is written and is approved in our public tax-funded buildings. If they are not following anything written, then you need to make them produce something and be sure to follow it up. Any and all persons working in there need to be certified as approved to teach or administer whatever is written, not just someone that thinks they know how to do something. And the person should be running the show or even working in there should not be allowed to wear any clothing with anything that relates to sex, gender, or race at all. Roger Courier. Jesse Cab. My name is Jesse Cad, and I'm an in-district resident and taxpayer. I'm providing this email to be read as public comments at the Tuesday evening, January 25th school board meeting. I would also like it to be considered as part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. Congratulations to Brian Shannon and Dave Brown on beating this ridiculous waste of time that was the recall. Once again, the voters have spoken and rejected extreme progressivism in Newburgh schools. Well done, and thank you for staying the course despite all the terrible mean-spirited opposition you have faced. I also want to point out that despite the new policy, the tyranny of the bureaucrat continues in our school district unabated. Teachers flaunt the new policy in their classroom. The district office near Edwards continues to plaster BLM pride-focused drawings by students in their office windows. And the city of Newburgh put a video montage up of various MLK projects by students, which in the last third reveal a large number of BLM pride positive messages, which are diametrically opposed to MLK's beliefs. I am certain that this is a concerted push by unelected non-parental educators who have the arrogance to believe they can challenge and change the views of parents' children without repercussion. I urge you to hire a superintendent as soon as possible who will enforce the new policy and begin the process of rooting out CRT in all its insidious forms. The kids and parents deserve better. Parents are primarily responsible for their child's education. Schools are delegated some of that responsibility. They are accountable to parents when they cross the line from education to indoctrination. Thank you. Peggy Kilburn. I don't like being on the losing end. Oh wait, the contentious recall election is finally behind us, and I'm very glad that Dave Brown and Brian Shannon remain on the school board. Elections have had consequences, twice each now for both of them. I don't like being on the losing end of any competition, so I can sympathize with those on the board who are disappointed that Dave and Brian weren't removed. However, I sincerely hope you are willing to set aside your disappointment and begin focusing more on the students' academic learning and less on political ideology and differences. Surely there is common ground to be found that will help our students achieve better academic outcomes. Especially at the high school, there is not much time to recover lost ground due to closed schools and then the firestorm of political media of the past 6 months or so. I hope every board member and the interim superintendent will set the expectation with teachers and staff throughout the district that they should be placing special emphasis on making up deficits in learning for each child and set aside other agendas. Every Newburgh resident will benefit from our students graduating as academically prepared as possible to be successful, whether it is in the job market or in the college or trade school. In talking with a number of people over the past few weeks who are planning to vote yes on the recall because they oppose the ban, a theme I heard repeatedly was that pride and BLM flags provide comfort to marginalized students who are often bullied. It infuriates me to think of bullying for any reason, and I repeatedly asked why the bullies are not being dealt with. No one had an answer. In my view, swift disciplinary action should be taken to deter this behavior. Their parents should be informed, and they should be removed from school if it continues. Is it true that bullying culture has been allowed to persist in the school district, particularly at the high school? And if so, why? I would sincerely appreciate an answer to this question. I wish you the best in your work in the coming months, and I particularly pray for success in hiring a strong, effective leader as superintendent. I appreciate that you all serve and without pay. Steve Paulson. I am writing to give my and my family's unwavering support of Dave Brown and Brian Shannon. We are Newberg transplants as of 7 years ago, and we have a son in the 6th grade at Mountain View Middle School. His favorite teacher is Mrs. Brown because she is so nice, and her room is the only one in the school with no signs of propaganda. The fact that our son has to worry or even think about political signs in school is abhorrent. He's there to learn and to be educated at the highest level. He can wear anything he chooses. That's not an issue. He can represent anything he wishes to. Every student there can. It's the classroom and the teachers that are not allowed to broadcast their political views, and that is how it should be. Our son should not be told or taught to feel guilty for his white heritage or anything else for that matter. He should not be virtue signaled into thinking he isn't a boy. He should have the freedom to go to school and be taught actual education and not any political ideology. I thank God and pray every day for Dave, Brian, and Renee, and every one of our children and members of the community for taking a stand and no longer being silent. I want to declare victory for Dave and Brian in our community, but I hesitate to do so because I've seen what happened in our country recently with fraudulent elections. If we are the real winners and the no on recall stands, then I ask that every political sign be removed on every campus and every classroom in our school district once and for all. I ask that elected board members are allowed to do our job without fear of retaliation. without fear of being canceled, without fear of having their lives and their loved ones destroyed. God bless you all. Ruth Schoenhals. Chair Brown and Director Shannon, please know this. A few hundred people more voting for you does not make what you do right. Breaking public meetings law, squandering taxpayer dollars, silencing student voices, and aligning yourself with fascist extremists is never right. We are not allowed to break the law. We are not allowed to be irresponsible or abusive. We know not to join the evil that over 400,000 American soldiers died to eliminate in World War II. You are not and should not either, especially as elected officials responsible to your students and constituents. This is your chance to reset your actions, commit to, and then actually do these things. Stop communicating and acting outside of meetings. Remove Tyler Smith. Listen to and meet the needs of marginalized students. Break off your extremist ties. If any of these changes is not possible for you, please resign from the Newburgh School Board. Robin Wheatley. My name is Robin Wheatley, and I've lived in Newburgh my entire life. I have two kids graduate from Newburgh schools, and I have 2 kids still in the district. I want to comment today about the direction I see our school district is heading, and I'm happy to have 4 board members who want the politics out of school and want to improve education. I fully support that as we have seen from the recent election results, so do the citizens of Newburgh and Dundee. I have a problem of mistrust with our school district that I have never experienced before. I do not trust that many of the faculty. We cannot have a healthy community with mistrust. Over the course of this year, I have witnessed counselors overstepping their boundaries with advice and inappropriate clothing choices. Newburgh High School advertising a COVID clinic telling children 15 or over they don't need parental permission for an experimental vaccine. Principals and counselors refusing to remove controversial political symbols from schools after I have filed complaints. Surveys being offered to middle school students that ask for their gender and if they are a member of the LGBTQ community without parents having access to the survey. Students at a middle school painting a mural of planets in the colors of the numerous sexual flags. We have girls using the boys' bathroom and locker rooms at the middle school. I understand this is law, but I worry about how this is affecting our vulnerable youth. Children being allowed to change their pronouns at school without parental knowledge. Permanent masking and vaccine requirements for staff and students with no option of body autonomy, a preoccupation with social justice rather than education. I have no doubt that there are many other instances going on in the school that the school does not want parents to know about. From what I have seen, there is a movement to remove and subvert parents from knowing what is going on in their children's lives at school. Parents need to pay attention and ask questions of your kids, teachers, counselors, and principals. You need to demand to be able to go into your kid's school regardless of vaccine status. Keeping your tax-paying parents out of the school they are funding due to vaccine status is wrong. And the 2 minutes up is on that one. Chris Douglas. I am providing this email to be read as the public comments at the Tuesday evening, January 25th board meeting. I would also like it to be considered part of the written communication record to the full board and interim superintendent. I'm looking forward to having an improved school atmosphere now that we are past the recall. I hope the interim school superintendent, Dave Novotny, will be implementing the directives of the board to rid the halls and classrooms of non-academic materials such as pride flags and Black Lives Matters fist posters. Our children are so far behind now as a result of the pandemic. It would be a perfect time to get back to basics and reinforce their foundation in reading, math, and science skills. Teachers with their primary interest being the education of their students will no doubt be relieved to be able to get back to fulfilling lesson plans and making some real progress toward the end-of-year goals for educational assistance. I hope this recall experience has been an eye-opener for all involved. It shows that providing a quality education for our children is more important than politics and personal animosity. I have been reassured to see our community put so much energy and enthusiasm into this effort to advocate for our children. Jim Talt. First, congratulations to Dave Brown and Brian Shannon. I'm glad the mean-spirited and bigoted recall effort was defeated and that you will remain seated in your duly elected positions. Second, among the board members is an individual that consistently wears divisive and sometimes hostile message apparel For example, BLM logo or decolonize academia shirts. This type of in-your-face signage is immature and intentionally divisive. I ask the other board members that may have influence on the wearer to have a word and encourage selection of non-controversial apparel in the interest of civility and returning to normal board governance. Jim Talt. To the board, I want to start by saying that while it appears that 2 of you may have survived the recall, this is far from over. Contrary to your repeated assertions, only a slight majority of the voting public supports you. The community of the whole does not, and we will continue to push back against your extremist agenda. Next, I want to address some of the contradictory messages that the public has been receiving. Dave Brown has called for unity and promised transparency, but in public called the flags he does not like or understand. And these are the words in the email, quote, shit flags, unquote, and opaquely for unity and promised transparency, opaquely listed an agenda item as, quote, potential action item, unquote, which not only lacks transparency, but appears to be an intentional listed as an agenda item as obfuscation. You invite outsider extremist groups to our community to protest public health mandates while complaining of outside political influences. You are the one bringing division and mistrust to the district. Brian Shannon has shared that he personally believes there is no difference between Black Lives Matter political organization and the decentralized social justice movement. He also believes that trans advocates believe that men and women don't exist. He admitted that his personal beliefs inform his policy, which is troubling to say the least, based on how misinformed his beliefs are. He then went on to insult his constituents by suggesting that we had nothing better to do because we were trying to have a dialogue with him. The disrespect you show the public is a disgrace to your office. Lex Agapian. And that was the last of our comments.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate you. Okay. Interesting comments for sure. Lisa, again, thank you for presenting the public comments. And we will now go to board comments, and I will start with Director Pyros.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Midas Jenkins, a student from Catalyst, who's recently been recognized as a hometown hero at a Trailblazers game for his leadership and advocacy. We're very proud of you, Midas, for representing Newburgh. And second of all, last Tuesday, we all got to experience a great American duty by filling out our ballots for our voices to be heard. And the reason for the recall was because a group of local citizens, taxpayers, parents, and business leaders felt they were not being heard by the school board. And with the recall 48 to 52, it is still clear that we are divided, and that we as a school board now need to show the community that we are willing to become bridge builders and to learn to work together to find answers to the questions: how do we make students feel more welcome? How do we make the marginalized students that have spoken to us what they're experiencing, how do we make that acceptable to all sides? What can we do that will help make every student welcome? And what can we do to collaborate and sit down together and come up with solutions to these problems we've been having? I feel that the teachers are we need to trust them and know that we haven't listened to them. We need to sit down and listen to why the teachers feel the way they do, and we can come up with a solution for all sides, that by working together, we can be successful and bring the school district back to a peaceful and successful educational experience for every student. I pledge as a school board member to be a school board member for the 100% of the population, not whatever side I have voted on, but that I want to encourage all my school board members that we work together as a team to really do the best for our students and for our community. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Pyros. Move on to Director Pena.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone that has gotten engaged over the last couple of months, and especially with the recall election. It shows your commitment to the education of the students in our district. From all the canvassers to all the phone bankers, thank you to everyone that got involved in one way or another. Reality is there is systemic oppression, and a part of our population who has lived in Newburgh for a long time cannot vote and have a voice at the ballot, but that's just how democracy works. The majority has spoken, and while it's not a super majority, it's still the majority, and we have to respect what that decision is, even if we disagree with it.
All right, thank you. Director Shannon.
First, I want to thank everyone who showed up last week to vote, and thank you for the community for voting to retain me and Dave on the board. Appreciate your support. You know, it's obvious that our community is very divided, and I think that division is the best case to be made for making schools a neutral learning environment, getting the politics out of schools. Because if we allow the culture wars to be imported into our classrooms, it's going to divide the community, half the community, and alienate them. And so I think we need neutrality and transparency. It should be a real wake-up call to the folks in our schools and in our administration that over half our community pressed the button saying that they were concerned about political indoctrination in our schools. That should be a huge red flag. And we need to work to find ways to earn back those people's trust and show them that we're not doing that. And I think the way we do that is we look at ways to make the educational process in our district more transparent to parents so they can have confidence in what their kids are learning in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Shannon. Director Powell.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for writing into the school board and having your voice be heard. It really does matter. I also am thankful that Brian and Dave will continue to serve on the board with us. It does sadden me, though, about how divided this community is with the results of the recall. And I pray that we can come together and put our differences aside and work towards putting the focus back on our students and getting them the best education as possible in a safe environment, which means looking at and addressing all the bullying that is going on. Should we start an anti-bullying committee? Maybe we need to update our policies to fit into today's situations. I'd like to see a way that we could address all of our students that are being bullied. There is more than just two groups that are being marginalized. And I also would like to hear from our student representatives and get their views on this as well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Powell. Director DeHart.
Thanks, Chair Brown. I don't have anything to say about the election. It is what it is. You know, my hope for the future, I think it can still be bright, right? We have a lot to tackle, and that means that we need to be focused on the educational experience and the educational institution that we have in the Newburgh School District. But I'm hopeful, and as I look at Maddie and Rowan, I hope that as we move forward, that you'll be a point of advice and a tether to what's going on in the schools. My hope is that you'll be talking to a wide swath of your fellow peers there and can bring that back to us and help give us advice and shape the path forward as we make decisions. And so once again, I'll thank Dr. Novotny, for stepping up to this and putting in all the time beyond what you had initially anticipated. I look forward to meeting with you. I was hoping this week, but maybe next. Busy schedule. So thanks for everyone showing up, and I look forward to the path ahead, getting past the hard issues with the the lawsuits and this recall. My hope is that we can start coming together and start focusing on the education and improving the academic performance and how we deliver that in a safe and welcoming environment in our schools. So thank you.
Thanks, Director DeHart. I'm last on this one. I would just like to clear something up. It's kind of a tough one to hear, but during the recall effort with the politics going on, there was something said where I used the word SHIT and flags in the same sentence. And there was a couple of times where words were put in an interview that I did not say, and I never said that. So I just want everybody to, that's frustrating. That's really tough when that kind of stuff happened. It was wrong for somebody to do that. For me, it's going to be focused on the board, and we have a lot of work to do. And regardless of how everybody feels personally about recalls or anything else, we're going to have to work together, and we just have to focus on education. And I'd like to see that be a big priority for all of us. We've had enough politics. I'd like to see us focus on making our schools the best we can be. We have a lot of catching up to do. We have a big job with hiring a new superintendent, and there'll be some more information about that later tonight. I'd like, it's a tough one. I understand, but being positive on all this stuff is definitely going to be better than what we've been through the last few months. Being respectful of everyone around you. I'd like to see people try really hard to do that. I mean, one way is just don't get on social media and Facebook. That probably helps quite a bit. It's tough out there to just have those conversations, and maybe in person, if you're really upset with them, ask them. I think as we move forward, all of us, if we focus on education, our public comments, please call in with comments that maybe move away from politics and move towards ideas that the public would have for education. We have some great teachers and great educational assistants and administrators. And as we move forward now, we could quickly transition into a positive message to them. Transparency, that word got thrown out tonight in public comments several different ways. To me, transparency means we need to let the community know that they have a voice in our schools. And to do that, we're going to have to open up the doors and the board, the parents, and we need to see what's happening in our schools. Right now, the trust factor is real low, and so let's get it back. We're in education. We're not in the ADEC dental equipment business. We're in education. So let's get back to focusing on kids and do a great job, get a great new superintendent, and let's get some of these people to come back to the Newburgh Public Schools that have left. That's my message tonight. So with that said, our next person up is Dr. Dave Novotny.
Thank you. So Chair Brown, members of the board, my comments will be very brief. I have 4 things that I wanted to highlight. First and foremost, I wanted to express my deep appreciation for the teachers, support staff, and administrators of the district. They have done a fantastic job over the last couple of weeks, just keeping our schools open and focusing on instruction. And I think all board members know it has been very, very challenging with the number of staff and students who have been out ill because of COVID-19. Their support of one another, their willingness to use our prep periods, and other things to cover for each other allowed us to keep schools open, serving kids. Their passion was outstanding, and I really do compliment them. A job very well done. Also, just wanted to close the loop on meetings with board members, the individual meetings with board members. We have made contact with all board members, and those meetings have either occurred or we're in the process of getting those scheduled. And once again, I have found those individual meetings with board members to be extremely helpful, and really appreciate board members giving me your time, the gift of your time, to learn a little bit more about your goals and priorities for the school district. The third item is a real positive development in that we have learned that we are going to be able to hire another school nurse for the school district, and the new school nurse should be on duty within 2 weeks. And I have to tell you, that is going to be a real benefit, a real help to our school district, and a support to Annie, who has done just a remarkable job in serving our students. And the last thing is one of the most enjoyable things. So I think you probably know that the work thus far has been really challenging for an interim superintendent. But tomorrow I'll be in the district, and I have the pleasure of getting out and actually getting into schools. So I'll be at Edwards and Crater Elementary Schools, and also be meeting with the high school administrative team. I have to tell you, I'm really looking forward to that. That's the reason I got into education in the first place. So wanted to let you know about that. So thank you, sir. That's it. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Novotny. Appreciate that. We'll go to our student representatives, and the first one up will be Maddie. Maddie, you there? Maybe not.
Your microphone always takes like 30 seconds to kick on.
Okay. I'm at 15.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we hear you now.
Thanks, Maddie.
Yeah.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Good. Well, I just wanted to say that I think schools are a place of education, but also that, especially in high school, those are 4 very crucial years, because you go from being, you come in, I think, at 14, and then you end at being 18. So you go from being a young teenager to an adult, and you find out a lot about yourself. And so you can't even really focus on education until you feel comfortable and safe. And so I think it's really hard, and you need to be able to see both sides. I don't think there's a completely right side. I think both sides make good and solid points. And I think if people were more open to thinking that not that their side is just completely right, but that, hey, maybe the other side also has, because school is about education, but people also need to be safe. It's both things, and it's not just one. And I think people just need to realize that and just be more open to that. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Maddie. Appreciate that. Rowan, are you there tonight?
Yes, hello.
You're up.
Awesome. Okay, so addressing what Madison said, and also what Director Powell said about bullying and how that's been prefacing more recently, I agree with Madison about the high school is really important about finding yourself and also finding your people. And so I think that although bullying has become more present, like more around our community during like controversial times, I think that being able to find safe spaces for students, no matter their opinions, is really important, whether it be from either side, being able to find people that support you, and like Maddie said, where you feel safe. I think that's really important. And then also touching on what Director Pyro said about being able to unite all of our students, regardless of what we believe. I think that's also really important. And being able to bridge gaps between that, I think will also help with the bullying issue. Just being able to see other sides of it, like Madison was saying. And then really briefly,
Oh, go ahead.
for those who are interested, parents, families, and student-wise, there is weekly COVID testing you can partake in. And so you can sign up at like your school's office, and then you sign a consent form and your student takes home a test every Monday. And the next day they can bring it back and receive their results. So if anyone's interested, you can contact your school's office to get more info about it.
Good commercial. Nice job. Hey, challenge Maddie and Rowan. I think what Director Shannon said earlier would be kind of cool if you guys, as you go back to your fellow students, what that bullying kind of looks like and how that's happening without using names, of course, but you know, how the different forms of bullying are happening. And also one of you guys made a comment about the safe place. You know, I think that was you, Rowan, what that looks like for the students. And maybe next board meeting, you guys could expand on that a little bit. That'd be, you know, really a unique perspective from you guys. That'd be really, really cool. So thank you so much. You guys are great.
Can I throw something else in there too, for Rowan and Maddie? If you could let us know too, what measures to take, like discipline measures in the people that are bullying. If you have some advice or opinion on that, of what kids would think that you'd like to see as a result of that, that would be helpful too, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Director Powell. That's a good add to that. Appreciate that. Okay, thanks everybody for their comments tonight. And we'll move on to our next item here on the agenda. It's going to be reports and presentation time, transportation contract update with Nikki Fowler, Shiloh Feck, and you guys are up.
Okay, great. I will start with this and then Shiloh can chime in. This is just kind of a quick review of where we are with the RFP process. We chose to go out for RFP for transportation services because the prior contract had been in place for 15 years. And there's actually language in the contract that says not to exceed. So we were prompted to go out and seek proposals to continue the services. So we went out in November, mid-November. So our first round, we received all the proposals, we evaluated them, but we had some technical errors in some of the language, the scoring language. So we chose to go out again just to be sure that we can complete the process in a timely manner and be able to get a contract in place soon enough for any of the proposers to begin as of July 1st. Can you scroll down just a little bit to the next page? And this is kind of just in a nutshell what we're looking for. So through the RFP process, we want to focus on student safety, individual building support, meaning looking at each building separately because each one has different needs on drop off and everything like that. Parent and guardian communication, student communication, student management, driver retention and training. And that training including, you know, your driving skills along with student skills, student behavior skills to keep our buses safe. And ultimately, finding a company that's the best fit and meets the needs of the district as a whole. As a piece of this, we really want to see a technology in place, so our routing software, and then access for parents to be able to watch where their buses are, how far away the bus is from their stop, and all that. And so we're hoping to really expand this going into next year for parent access. I think that's about all, unless Shiloh has anything to add or if there's any questions.
No, you said it perfect.
Shiloh, you good on that?
This process has been good. Again, I would just reiterate that last paragraph is kind of in a nutshell of what we're looking at. We're thinking about parent student safety, and that is kind of the nuts and bolts of this RFP. So.
Got her. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions anybody has there for Nikki or Shiloh? No? Okay, you guys are off the hook. Okay, next up, we've got Lisa Friley and Tyler Smith talking about processing public complaints.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Mr. Smith and I met earlier this week to talk through what a recommendation could be for the board. There have been a significant number of complaints that have been filed in the past, I don't know, 2-3 months. I think we gave you a spreadsheet that kind of shows you just the scope, breadth, and scope of the ones that are out there. And many of these, because of all the other issues we've been dealing with, have not been on the forefront of moving forward from the administrator. Their appeals of administrative decisions are currently pending before the board. And as Mr. Smith and I talked about it, and I'll give him a chance in just a few minutes, but what he and I came to the conclusion that might be a more efficient way to deal with these is to have both he and I review them. In other words, we would take all of those complaints. I would start with an initial review of what the status of those are and whether or not those complaints still have standing or merit, or whether there may have been something that has either resolved it or that makes it no longer still a problem, right? Because we either undid some action or we changed something. And then there might be some that do require some action by the board. But what we would do is we would go through every single one of them. I would take a review and try and develop a recommendation. I would then send it off and let Tyler take a quick look at it and see what insights he has, if he can add to it, so that we can come back to the board with recommendations on all of the outstanding complaints as to what we believe your next steps or actions should be. And to be perfectly honest, in some cases that may require you to hear from the complainants and the administration. In some cases that may allow you to just move forward and dismiss the complaint because there is no further issue outstanding. It could be any number of those things, but it seemed to us like a more effective and efficient way to try and kind of gather those up and try and do some work on those that would happen more quickly and maybe a little more expeditiously than having the board go through all of them in a public session. So Tyler, did I kind of summarize that pretty accurately?
Yeah, I think that's what we're sort of looking for direction from the board on. We just wanted to I guess, recap the sort of the process for everybody, because it has been so long since this has been dealt with. You know, we've got complaints in here that are going back to June, July, I think, all the way through. And as you know, the district has policy KL-JFH, which is the regular complaint dealing process. And then there's KL-JFH administrative regulation, which is the administrative processing for it. And one of the issues that came up over the last 5 months or 6 months is that most of these are multi-step processes. So each type of complaint, depending on who it's complaining about, has a different process for the processing of it. For instance, it may go to the local teacher, it may go to the building supervisor, such as the principal, it may go to the superintendent, it may go to the board chair, it may go to the board vice chair. And each one of those steps has a different process, and there's an escalation process for each time. So if the complainant wants to appeal something, then it goes to the next higher level. And so during the periods of time when there was a lack of ability to have executive sessions, or folks weren't wanting to have executive sessions, or we didn't have staff to run meetings and things like that, there were periods of time where there was missing pieces that needed to be done to deal with some of these. So that's why there's a backlog of these, and they can get caught up. Some were not sent to legal counsel, some were not sent to board chairs. And so that's why there's a little bit of a backlog. Hopefully when this backlog is alleviated, these can be kept up with in the normal course again here in the near future. I did want to mention that some of these have already been dealt with. So as I mentioned, each type of complaint has a different kind of a process. So some of them have been already dealt with as much as they need to be, potentially, and some of them haven't. So what you'll see coming, if you want us to move forward in the path that that Dr. Fraley had mentioned, is that we'll have recommendations for you on how to process each one of these as we move forward. And there'll be probably different kinds of recommendations. One may be you need to have a hearing. One may be we just don't think this has any merit because the person that complained was just wrong on the facts, or things like that. So that's kind of the process, and hopefully we can get these cleared out. I'm in complete support. Ms. Fraley was going to do them first. Obviously, she's a little more economic than I am, but I've already responded to some of these and already researched some of these, and we've already submitted responses on some of these. And so we wanted to work on it as a team.
I have a question.
Anything more there?
I have a clarifying question.
Yes.
So you mentioned, Mr. Smith, that you've already responded to some of these. Is it just because they were forwarded to you? Like, I'm confused as to why you responded.
I responded to these because the school district had a legal obligation to respond. So somebody has to do it. No, most of these were not forwarded to me. Since that time I was hired, Chair Brown and Director Powell actually tried to forward some of these to me, but I was not given these by the former superintendent. And some of them just were sort of out there. So now Ms. Fraley has taken the lead, and some of the staff, I think Nikki and Shanna, have really helped out and gotten the updated status on all of these to us as legal counsel. So now we can fully process these and get these done.
Board Member Pena, I'd also like to add that the majority of the ones that, quote, have been responded to have been ones that were complaints that administration would have responded to independent of coming to the board, such as a response to the Oregon Department of Education. There's a couple of them where there were requests from the Oregon Department of Education to respond. And that would just be a natural part of what the administration would do. And they've asked us to respond to those on their behalf. And that's where some of them are that Mr. Smith is talking about.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa and Tyler, for clearing that up. And we'll look forward to your next report on that. So we need a motion. Would somebody like to make a motion on this?
I will. I'll move to direct Ms. Freely and Mr. Smith to review the outstanding complaints and provide the board with a recommendation on next steps.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, all those in favor of this motion, please raise.
You should ask if there's any debate.
Is there any debate? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. I can't see everybody, guys, so I can only see one. I'm going to go through and ask. I only see Director Pena and Shannon on this, so.
Chair Brown, I can see that 5 members have their hand up at this time. Director Piros, Powell, DeHart, and Shannon. Or excuse me, 4. I was counting you.
Okay, so we're 5-1 on that then, Teresa?
If you choose to vote, yes.
Yeah, I had my hand up there already. So 5-1, correct?
Oh, you need to call the nays.
You need to call the nays.
Okay, I have Directors Brown, Shannon, Powell, DeHart, and Piros saying yes, and I have Director Pena as a no. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I can only see so many on there, my screen, you guys.
You can put it on gallery mode and see everyone.
Motion passes 5-1. Okay, thanks again to Lisa and Tyler for that. Appreciate that. Next up, executive search proposals. Lisa Frightley is up again. So Lisa, are you ready to go again?
I am ready to give it my best shot. So we originally had reached out to McPherson and Jacobson and Ray and Associates, and because they were two of the firms that had submitted proposals the last time around. And Ray and Associates was unable to attend our December meeting. And so we hadn't had a chance to hear from them. So based on the conversation I had with Chair Brown, I reached out to both companies, and Ray and Associates had indicated that they did not have the staffing to be able to provide services to the district in conducting a search. So we were down to McPherson and Jacobson that was going to be here this evening, and they have come to the same conclusion that they lack the ability to staff a search process. So I spent some time, and we found that out this afternoon. And there were some conversations with Dr. Novotny and with Chair Brown. And I've done some research because I think I've clearly heard from the board that there's an interest that we move this process as expeditiously as possible. But there is also a goal of, as I talked with Chair Brown about it today, to me, it seems like there's two markers we need to hit. One is that the process needs to comply with any policy or legal requirements we have in terms of the selection process. So it needs to be legal. And secondly, it needs to be a process that allows us to try and find the most qualified and effective educational leader we can find to fill this position that is willing to come and work in the Newburgh School District. And so there is an effort to try and balance both expediency as well as effectiveness of the search. So what I would like to hear some discussion about is kind of a quasi, given that there is not a full-blown, a search company who's willing to do a full-blown search. I've done a little bit of research. There is a process through the Oregon School Boards Association. And I recognize that that comes with the mere fact that I said that name. I know there are some positive and negatives that come with that organization. But in this particular instance, there's a self-directed search process that we can purchase that will outline for us kind of the standard steps, all the legal check marks that we need to look at. It will also include some salary survey data for us. So it will give us some idea of of what some of the salaries are, so we can help to set the salary for it. And it will give us the ability to have some very limited support should we want it. The total cost of that service is pretty minimal. It's only $2,500 to get access to some of these documents. And it seems like that may be well worth our conversation. The second thing that I talked to Chair Brown about today is that the other thing they're willing to provide me is the name of some additional search consultants besides those who have physically reached out to us, for us to reach out to them. And not necessarily, folks, to do the actual search itself in a more traditional sense, but to provide some of the administrative support that we need for this search, for it to fit into the legal category, and for us to provide, to get access to some of that support from staff that's outside the district office, right? It will provide some workload relief and a variety of other things. If we chose to do that, for instance, the other thing that we could use through the Oregon School Boards Association, which I think is meritorious for us to think about, is that they have already a survey component set up that is both in English and in Spanish that would allow us to communicate with the public and to gather some of the legally required input and feedback as it relates to the qualities and qualifications and the criteria and the process that we are going to use to conduct this search. And I think that could be done fairly quickly if you decide to take advantage of that opportunity tonight. In other words, I think we could potentially at least I would be working with the association to try and get that survey out so we could get the results actually back for your next meeting, so that you could then potentially adopt the criteria and the process, which is what the statute and the policy requires for us to move forward on the search, right? And if we were to engage a consultant, they could help us manage, literally just receive the applications. They could help us with some of the advertising and creating some of the flyers and brochures that we want to use to try and recruit some people to come and work in Newburgh. There's just some of those more administrative pieces that they could do for us that are not necessarily connected to a timeline or a traditional recruitment that might be pretty helpful for us to move this process along pretty expeditiously while still having a pretty substantial outreach and to try and get some qualified candidates to submit an application. So my recommendation would be that we basically consider contacting OSBA to use that self-directed search to get the documents that would help support us, to see if they could help us with the survey to seek community support, and then reach out to some other consultants to see if for a very kind of limited use of some administrative support, if they could help us with the receipt of applications, the advertising, and some of those components that would then happen independent of being staffed by the central office. A lot of information, very quick, but if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them along the way.
I think I like the proposal, especially that acknowledging that we're in limited staff already in the district office. And if this firm can support to take off the additional work so we don't drown our district office staff already. Anything we can do to also get public input is important. Thank you for working on this.
Hey, Lisa, this is Director DeHart. What are the legal requirements that I know that we have policy that we got to comply with? Or is there Oregon statutes or laws that require certain things? And if so, what are they?
Yeah. So, sorry, I've got a little dry throat going here. So most of them are connected, besides the standard non-discriminatory processes, right? So every employer always has a search process that tries to outreach so that you don't violate any basic discrimination laws, you know, like race, age, gender, all those things. Besides those, the ones that exist in Oregon law and statute are connected to your ability to use the executive session portion of the law. So in order for you to be able to go into executive session, which many boards like to have the option to use an executive session for this selection and hiring process, it requires that and it's in 192.660, and it talks about that you have to have adopted a regular hiring process, that has to have been adopted in a public meeting in which the public has an opportunity to comment on the standards, criteria, and policy directives. And so that's the feedback that I'm looking to get through part of this survey component. So again, what it says is the governing body has adopted hiring standards, criteria in terms of how are you going to select, policy directives in meetings open to the public in which the public has had an opportunity to comment on those standards, criteria, and policy directives.
And that's outlined in our policy on hiring a superintendent, correctly? Correct.
It's almost identical. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we can't just, I mean, if we wanted to change the policy, we wouldn't be able to just change that policy because it's kind of grounded in state law. And then most districts also use a survey to also seek information about the qualities and the qualifications of the candidate they're looking for, the type of candidate they're looking for. They often call them Q and Qs.
So Lisa, just to clarify what you just said previous to my question. So your proposal is to come back with the specifics on what OSBA would offer, where they would be advertising, all the stuff that fills in the gaps.
Yeah, well, my proposal is a little more direct, more specific than that, Board Member DeHart. I would propose that we engage OSBA for the limited purpose of buying the self-directed superintendent search program they have, which costs us $2,500. That we find out, that we ask them to conduct the survey component for us because they already have it in existence in both English and Spanish. And we find out what they're going to charge us for that, but we use them for the capacity of conducting that survey and that gathering that public input. That we try to get that public input done by February 8th, so that at the February 8th board meeting, we would be able to adopt the policy, the practices, and the criteria, which would allow us to then generate the advertisement that goes out, soliciting applications. And then the remainder part of my proposal would be to allow me to go and see if I could find a consultant who would help us with managing the applications and the advertising that we would like to have done to get candidates aware of the position to come and interview and apply.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry,
That
go
helps. I guess one other thing, can you expand on what a self-directed search is?
Self-directed means we're doing it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So OSBA would help with kind of filling in the.
They would be available to us for some phone calls and a couple hours of board meetings if we needed some help on a couple of issues or we wanted them to meet with us on something. But the bulk of the work would be done by the board, and the administration, which is part of the reason, Board Member DeHart, that I'm suggesting that as a companion to that proposal, we seek a consultant in a more non-traditional sense to provide some administrative support to us in some of the applications and the advertising. And the other part that we get from it is obviously that checklist and a description of a process, which we could use to kind of pick and choose what we want in terms of how our process should look. In terms of the selection.
Yeah, that clarifies things. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. I apologize. It's a lot of information. Director Pena.
Thank you. Just to be clear, when we put out the RFP for potential contracts, or we would consult with to have this hiring search, was it sent out to OSBA and they just didn't submit to, or they didn't apply to be a company that worked with us?
They did not. And I talked to them today because I asked if they had the capacity to staff the search. And they too are in the middle of about a half a dozen searches that are all coming to kind of the selection and the hiring process is all coming to a close, like in February and March, with the interviews and the hiring. So they don't have the bandwidth to actually do the search itself. Okay. But they do have this limited kind of
self-directed,
right, that we could use that would give us some access to some limited support. You know, we get phone calls that we could call and ask them questions and get some assistance. We have up to 3 hours, I believe was what I read, for meetings with the board if the board had questions or wanted some help. We also would get some salary data, which would help guide the board on what some of the salaries, however we choose to kind of identify that, our grouping that we look at.
Yeah, with the previous search, we worked with OSBA and they did a phenomenal job of making sure that it was more of a 360, everybody involved in making this decision. So I loved working with them. It's a shame that we can work with them only with a limited capacity, but something is better than nothing. So here we go.
They also, part of it, I believe, gives us a chance to post. They have a page on their website where districts post superintendent jobs. And so people are aware of that. So that's a place we would be able to post as well, which would give us some exposure to potential candidates. Other questions? Any concerns? Any issues that we need to talk about? Director Shannon.
Do we know what the questions on the survey are?
No, but if we decide to go forward, I would definitely want to take a look at them. I'd like to see them. Right, see what they're asking. But I think
would we
they're
have the
probably pretty
option
standard.
would we have the option to edit those in any way, or is it just you get what you get?
You know, I don't know why we couldn't, Director Shannon. We might have to pay for the cost of the changing of the survey, right? Because they would have to translate it and some of those other things. But I can't imagine, unless we rewrote the whole thing, I can't imagine it would be incredibly expensive. And no matter how we structure this, it seems to me like we're going to be doing it for less than what a traditional search would cost us.
Okay, well, I think I support the proposal, and I thank you for all the effort you put into this, Lisa.
I have a question. Does the district office is this something, I mean, we need to do it, but how is our bandwidth? Maybe Dr. Novotny can speak to that.
Yeah, Director Pyros, just to be real transparent, there's not a lot of bandwidth at the district office to do a lot of this work. I think that's why part of Lisa Freely's recommendation is to have that supplemental support through a consultant that can help take care of some of those administrative tasks. And I think that would be an important part of this component in order to implement an effective search process, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa, you guys?
So if we support this proposal, or we pass this proposal tonight, you're then going to engage with OSBA and get that survey started. How will we look at the survey and edit it and do all that stuff? Because it sounded like you wanted to come back with the results of the survey at the next meeting.
One is always optimistic, Director Shannon. I don't know if I will be successful, but that's my target, right? I have not had any conversation with OSBA about the timeline that I'm currently talking about. Because to be honest, we found out about this early this afternoon. Steve Kelly was out he was headed down to a school district in Southern Oregon to do a search. And so he and I played phone tag for a little while. But he assured me he was interested in trying to help us to the degree that they had the bandwidth to do that. So I guess what I would say is, do we feel a need for every board member to see the questions? Do we feel the need to potentially have a representative of, some kind of representatives of the board look at it? All of those make a difference in terms on how quickly, right? And by the way, we could easily provide feedback via an email system, right? Because that's not a meeting. You're not making a decision. You're basically providing me feedback on what you think or what you feel about it. You can't reply all to each other, right? But you could reply to me. And then the question is whether or not, and I could then sit down with Chair Brown and finalize it before we implemented it.
Hey, Lisa, I have a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways we could do it, Director Brown.
I think, for me, as we move forward after everything we've been through, it's important that all 7 board members have a chance to review the questions so we can start this process of doing this together. And we'll just have to be good about making sure we just email you and try to do it in a manner that's pretty quick. But I'd like to see all 7 board members be part of the process so we get everybody's feedback. So I hope that's okay with everybody.
Mr. Chair, I agree with that.
Chair Brown.
Yes.
This is Tyler Smith. I just wanted to make sure we remind, because one of the things we have not been able to address is we do need to be conscientious. Director Piros' situation, we need to be conscientious to make sure there's enough time and things are in proper formats. We've had some conversations about that, that we need to make sure. So one of the ways that Mrs. Fraley has been really dealing with that and making a Herculean effort to assist with that, but we need to make sure whatever timelines you want and responses you require can give at least enough time that Director Piros can give her 2 cents and has time to review things. So there's more we should probably talk about that, one offline or executive session, but we do need to make sure that that's dealt with and accommodated.
Well, I would prefer that this take as long as it needs to, so that we make the accommodations.
Yes, and I don't want Director Piros to think that there wouldn't be. I will continue to work with Director Piros to make sure that she has. I have and will continue to work with Director Piros to make sure she has what is necessary in order for her to be effective in her position as a board member. So.
Thank you.
Rebecca, how does that sound to you?
That sounds great. I trust Lisa to do. She's been very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lisa, for that. Thanks, Tyler, for bringing that back up. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Lisa on this?
Did we need a motion for this, Lisa?
I do. I would like you to give some direction. And unfortunately, Director Shannon, because it was a late it was a late evolution to this, I don't have a draft motion in front of you, but I would love to have a motion that authorizes me to speak to OSBA and engage them in the self-directed search to talk about getting a survey started and to talk to an outside consultant to see if they could provide some administrative support, and then eventually bring that person back to you for final consideration.
Okay.
I'm sorry that was, I would normally, Director Shannon, provide you a much better written motion, but I just didn't have enough notice.
All right, I'll give it my best shot. I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors authorize, what's your title with us, Lisa? You're an attorney, but is it with Pace?
No, I serve as general counsel. I'm on your authorized list of appointments that you did in July as general counsel for the district.
Okay, so authorize general counsel Lisa Fraley to contact OSBA regarding beginning a self-directed superintendent search process, as well as contact search firms to find us a consultant to help in the superintendent search process. Is that good enough?
I'll second.
Do we need an amendment to include the survey? Lisa?
I guess because it's not part of the self-directed search, does your amendment anticipate, as my contact with Director Shannon, does your amendment anticipate that the contact with OSBA would include the survey contact?
I thought I included the survey.
No, you didn't.
Sorry, I thought it was incidental to what my motion authorized. If we need a separate amendment to authorize.
Is the survey part of OSBA's services that they're offering?
Yes.
So that would be all encompassing then in Director Shannon's motion?
You did talk about services, right?
Yeah.
Director Shannon. So Director Piros, I think that it would, as long as we all have an understanding that services would include the self-directed component as well as seeking the survey component, understanding that it will be a charge above and beyond the 2,500. Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were covered with for the charges.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Thanks, Director Shannon, for pulling that one together. All right. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. And I am seeing 5 hands up. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 5, 0, and if you're abstaining, here we have 5, 0, and 1 abstain.
Who's
Chair Brown, unless
abstaining?
I miscounted, I think there was 6.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see
I think
that.
there was 6 there.
There was 6. Okay, thank you very much. Passes 6-0. Lisa, always a great job. Thank you very much for all your hard work. And Tyler, thank you very much for your input there. Moving on to our next thing here under new business, we've got construction contract approval, and we have our Director Larry Hampton is going to run that for us. Larry, are you ready?
I am. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
So far with the bond related to maintenance kinds of things, we've done more kind of relatively smaller projects. We've replaced some boilers and we replaced a chiller at the high school, which is not a small thing, but overall in the size of the bond, the amounts of money are relatively smaller. We had our first kind of bigger bid project that just was the bidding was completed, and we've accepted the bid. So from Griffith Roofing Company has given us a bid to re-roof Antonia Crater Elementary School. If you've been in Antonia Crater recently in the last few years, you've probably seen what some people call the water feature. When you first go in, there's we've had some leaks and it's a 26-year-old membrane roof, so it's given us more life than it was expected to in that time. So it is time for it to be replaced, and in starting this whole process with looking at roofs, the preference of the school district in roofs was what they call a build-up roof, a two-ply build-up roof. It's I think if some of us older people maybe would call it like a hot mop or something like that. But anyway, a build-up roof, little more hardy, tends to last longer, easier to patch, some of those kinds of things. What we found as we've gone through a lot of the just estimating for projects in roofing, we found that the price of build-up roof has been estimated to be higher than we can afford in what's budgeted for some of these projects. So we've had to pivot a bit to looking at membrane, a single ply membrane roof, which is what we have on most of our buildings at this time. Again, some of it is better quality than others. But anyway, so in the bid, we asked for them to bid on the single ply, but we also put in an alternate that they could give us a plus or minus of what it would cost instead to do a buildup. And we were pleased when we opened the bids to find that Griffith was not only under budget in what they bid, but they actually had the alternate as being $3,800 less than the main, than the membrane roof. And being that that's what we really wanted, we were happy to be able to accept their bid again as under budget and the type of roof we wanted. So anyway, our recommendation would be to approve this contract with Griffith Roofing so that we can get that moving.
Larry, thank you very much for that. I think we'll go ahead and go to the motion a second, then we can have discussion if we need to on that.
I'll move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors approve the small construction projects contract with Griffith Roofing Company and the replacement of the roof of Antonia Crater Elementary School.
I'll
I
second.
second.
Okay. Appreciate you guys doing that. Any discussion? Any questions for Larry?
Hey, Larry, this is Trevor. Did you have any concerns that they were coming in so low from the typically cheaper option? Did you clarify that that wasn't a misprint or something?
Yes, we did. That was
Okay.
certainly that, and you know, working with Cornerstone, Mary Dolan from Cornerstone has worked with us on this process, and she checked to make sure that. But yeah, that you know, the difference. The reason that we expected it to be higher is it tends to take more labor to do the build-up roof. But I think what they felt is that the availability and the price of the membrane was more of an issue. So you know, there were some of the. I mean, we had several bids for the job, and all of the other companies had it more for the build-up, but some of them it wasn't significantly more. But it was just the fact that Griffith, first of all, their bid for the single ply was one of the lower. It wasn't the lowest, but then when you factored in the minus for the other and giving us what we wanted, then it was the one to. So, but yes, we did check. They didn't make a mistake on it. They were backing up what they said they'd do.
And I guess one other question, sorry, Larry, I guess for my own edification, when you send out for, when you send out for a bid on services like this, especially like a roof, do you clarify, do you specify, you know, what age of the roof or how long it'll last, or do you specify specific materials or to make sure that what we're getting is on par between what they're all bidding on?
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, even more than that, there was a process, first of all, that anybody that wanted to bid on it had to go through a process to be approved as a company that, you know, could, as a roofing company that could work on these. So, you know, not just any fly-by-night outfit could put in a bid. You know, they had to show that they were capable of doing that. And then, yeah, we spec out the kind of materials, whether it be the membrane or the others, and you know, and all the different pieces of it, the flashing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so we can compare apples to apples. Absolutely. That's a good question.
Yeah, and I guess one last question: as we get in these bids, how do we vet the companies that are bidding? For example, has Griffith done work for us before? They have a long standing in the community doing these kind of jobs. Do we look at the Better Business Bureau, stuff like that?
Well, again, a lot of those processes are taking place kind of behind the scenes. That's one of the reasons we hired Cornerstone to be our reps in this process, because they work with construction of schools all the time. You know, I mean, that is their job. They rep school districts and working with contractors. So they have a process that they walk us through and that they do for us in doing that vetting of the companies. And so, you know, they work with us on what our specs are, and then they put out the information to the industry and get the information back and walk us through that again. And there's a process just like in selecting architects or other contractors, or just like the process to select the school bus company. You know, there was a process that way to look at what they proposed and kind of grade it and stuff and determine which companies were appropriate to be able to do this kind of job. One of the things in this whole process, where we can, we're trying to have local companies be able to work. And there's some of these jobs that are just bigger than most local companies can do. We are looking for ones where, for example, there's another project where it's a smaller roof that we're gonna, we would like to find a local roofing company, from Newburgh area that could do it. These for this big of a job, it's they're more coming from the metro area.
Gotcha. Hey, thank you.
Larry, what time frame are we looking at for completion?
The work is going to be this summer. There'll be a bunch of work on the campus of both Crater and CV this summer, and that'll just be one of the pieces.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we go to the vote on that, I was just going to say, probably nobody in our district has a better feel for every single building than Larry Hampton. So, as a board member, if you have any questions, I'm sure he would love to get a ton more emails than he already gets. But, if you kept it fairly short, but he can answer those questions since there's going to be so much bond work going on in multiple buildings. But Larry, appreciate you very much for doing that. We'll probably be talking to you quite a bit in the near future. So thank you for the presentation. Okay. All those in favor.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe we have a motion to it.
I thought we did.
Yeah.
We do?
I made
Yeah.
the motion.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It was so long ago, I forgot we did it.
That's okay. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes 6-0. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, Larry Hampton, thank you for that. At this time, we are going to go into a recess. We're going to move into an executive session. And right now, looking at my watch, we're about 8:41. So at 10 minutes to 9, we'll come back into executive session. That gives you 9 minutes to take care of whatever you need to take care of and get transitioned over. Is that enough time for everybody? Okay. We will see you in about 9 minutes. Thank you very much.
And Dave, will we be coming back to a regular board meeting so the public can be part of that too?
Yep. After we get done with the executive, we'll be coming back and reconvening for sure. So not sure how long executive session will last, but it'll be a little while.
Okay, thank you.
What should Rowan and I do? Oh, it doesn't work. Sorry.
Here, Baron, did you hear Maddie's question?
I did not.
She's asking what her and Rowan should do.
Good question there. Greg, are you still there with them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Rowan and Maddie, you can choose. Student reps are not able to go to the executive session. So this session will be staying open the whole time until the board returns. So you can either stay and wait for them to return, or being that it's a school night, if you have work that you need to do, you're welcome to leave at that point.
Thanks, Greg.
I'm probably gonna head off. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rowan.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. We got everybody here.
Checking. I know that we have 5 board members for sure.
6, I see 6.
Great, we're good.
Okay, so we're back. Board Chair, could you announce that we're back in open session?
Yes, we are back into open session for the Newburgh School Board.
Perfect. So I would be grateful if the board could make a motion to uphold the administration's decision regarding the complaint just discussed in executive session.
I'll move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors approve the administration's resolution of the complaint covered in open session or in executive session.
Thank you.
Do we have a second on that?
I second. Oh,
Okay, I think we're gonna go right to a vote this time. All those in favor of what we discussed on that motion, please raise your right hand. I see that as 6-0. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much for that one, you guys. Back in open session. It's gonna be pretty quick here. Before we adjourn, I just want to let everybody know that we have a probably busier schedule coming up than normal. We'll have to probably call a special meeting or two as we get more information on our superintendent search and how that's going with getting all that information out to the public and getting all that information to each other. So with that, appreciate Lisa, Tyler, and Karen helping us a lot tonight. Dr. Dave, do you have anything left to say tonight?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your help. We sure appreciate you again. You've done a great job. So I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting right now. Thank you very much.